sponsored by DSA Signage. As more QSRs lean on the drive-thru for steady revenue and customer convenience, the strategy behind it matters more than ever. So, from layout and signage to technology, we are going to hear all about how smart planning and the right partnerships can elevate the quick service experience. But first, I have just a few quick housekeeping notes before we get started. First, a recording of this session will be linked at qsrmagazine.com. You can also use today's login link for on-demand viewing. Also, we will be answering audience questions at the end of the presentation, but please feel free and in fact encouraged to submit a question in the Q&A box at any time. Also, we have some helpful materials related to today's program, and they are available for you to download under the resources widget. And then lastly, if you happen to run into any problems with the platform, you can just click on Help in the top menu for troubleshooting steps. And now to begin, I'm going to hand things over to Shafiei, President and CEO of DSA Signage, to get things started. Take it away, Sho.
Thank you, Sam. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are. And thank you so much for joining our session. We're going to have a really fun session for you, and I hope you all enjoy it. Primarily, we're going to focus on three overall topics, briefly cover what the QSR landscape is looking like this year, and get into the partnership aspect of it and what makes a successful partnership and what does that mean for your business. And lastly, how do you adapt to your specific market and how do you apply it to your specific strategy? And with me here today, I have two experts that I think a lot of you are going to resonate with. And I'd love to introduce the two of them and just have each of them briefly say a little bit about themselves. First, Miss Brittany Mercer. She's the Director of Marketing at Cowboy Chicken. Brittany, take it away.
Thank you, Sho. Thanks, everybody, for joining today. Hi, as Joe said, my name's Brittany. I'm the Director of Marketing for Cowboy Chicken. Cowboy Chicken is a fast casual wood-fire rotisserie brand. We've been serving all-natural chicken, scratch-made since 1981. We're actually celebrating our 44th anniversary this month, so super exciting for Rotisserie Chicken Month. My role is about connecting the dots between our guests, our teams, and our partners in making sure that marketing and operations and tech, so that's such a key piece, work in sync to create an experience that, people remember and most importantly, come back for. It's really a brand that's built on doing things the right way or the cowboy way, even though sometimes that takes a little bit more time and maybe creativity. So it's kind of this same mindset drives how I approach our partnerships and innovation, and maybe a theme that you may notice in the call today.
Thank you. And on the other side, I have Mr. Eli Chmouni, CEO of Neon. Eli?
Thank you, Sho. Hey, everyone. I'm Eli. I'm the founder and CEO of Neon. Started the company about 4.5 years ago, really to address a need in the software space of managing the guest experience inside the store and beyond. So our Neon platform is a single solution that allows brands to really manage the content that shows up on their indoor menu boards, their drive-through menu boards, and also their guest experience, including music and guest Wi-Fi.
Thank you so much. And myself, my name is Shafiei. As Sam mentioned, I'm the President and CEO of DSA Signage. For those of you who don't know us, we are a U.S. manufacturer of anything signage, and especially drive-through menu boards and indoor signage that you may need for your restaurant, from decor all the way to any kind of enclosure you may need, or static menu boards if you use those. with that, having the two experts on my side, we like to start the session with a poll question to kind of get a feel for the room and the audience and see what are some of the key things, like how you think about this topic. The question is, what is the biggest challenge? So when you think about opening a new store, whether it's a second generation space that you're remodeling or a brand new space that you're doing a build up from ground up, and it includes a drive-through lane in it, what are the biggest challenges you deal with? Is it finding the right partners? Is it integrating the right technology so the operation runs smoothly? Is it designing an efficient layout, or is it really about the money and the finances? So we're going to allow about 60 seconds for everybody to take the time to answer that question, and then we'll go from there. I see the votes are gradually coming in. Excited to see what everybody's answer is.
I don't know if I'm supposed to vote or not, Cho, but I am. And I'll tell you, this is a difficult question.
Are you feeling like clicking all four?
I do. I want to. I don't know if it's going to let me. I don't want to skew the data. Well, just think about the worst one. What's the most challenging? They may all be challenging, but what's the one that you lose sleep at night over it? Got it.
We'll give it just a few more. About half the votes are in, but we know that drive-through doesn't apply to everybody, so there's a good chance a few of our audience members may not be able to answer it. So. All right. I think we got a good number of people answering, so let's go and see what the answer was. Oh my goodness, talk about being kind of divided. Wow, the right technology. Well, Eli, I'm glad you're here. That's nearly half of it, but
I was going to say, Brittany already has my phone number, but for the rest of you, I'll help you
I'm going to put it in the chat, Eli. Be careful.
That's interesting. This is usually they're not this far apart, but this is really good, integrating the right technology. And I think we all know how important that is. And then between designing an efficient layout and finding the right strategic partners, those are kind of tied. And shockingly, despite what the market looks like, the finances are rated the least challenging, which kind of makes sense when you think about most of the time when you're at the point of opening your store, hopefully you've lined up all your finances. But there are still some challenges with prices changing and things costing more than what they normally would. So what we're going to briefly go through here is just talk about the overall market. Understanding that this is kind of focused on brands that are falling under the QSR and fast casual, and for the most part do use a drive-through. And then I'll go into why we picked Cowboy Chicken. Based on some of the research that QSR Magazine has done, around 70 to 80% of the revenue is coming from the drive-through portion still on average for brands that fall under this category. And you got to keep in mind that some of them, if they're a coffee brand, for example, that might be up to 90%. And then there are going to be brands that might be in the 40, 50%. And then Brittany is going to talk to us about how in their strategy, this is actually not a big thing. We know that the indoor dining has made a comeback to some extent post-COVID, but the convenience factor that really got emphasized during the pandemic hasn't gone away. Even though now you have the option to go sit down, there is still that convenience factor. Can I just stay at home and order my rotisserie chicken to come through DoorDash instead? When customers were interviewed and talked about, if you go to a store and the line is out the door, or you feel like the drive-through is just not efficient, it's not as quick as you want it to be, would you still stand in line? 70% of them said no, I would just dismiss it. Either go park and go inside if I really want that food, or pick a different brand. So it's really important that if you do have drive-through, it's an efficient one. And people were asked about dynamic menus, and that could be interpreted differently. And I know Eli is going to have a lot to share with us on that. You could think of it as dynamic pricing for your slow time versus rush hour. Or you can think about it as how quickly your digital menu switches content. And is it really the efficient way of doing it? Is it going so fast that customers have to wait for a whole loop to go through to see what they really want? Or is it so slow that they just give up and order something? And the fact remains that time is of the essence. Like, people really care about how long it takes for them to get their order. That urgency is still there. So making sure that all your technology and your hardware are synced together properly, so they're getting that timeliness, it's going to be quite important. So my first question is actually for Eli. And if he could kind of provide us some insight as to the timing aspect of it, both on the content changing and anything else that relates to that service when it comes to the digital signage.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. In terms of the content for the drive-through, speed of how fast you push cars through your drive-through and the speed of service is a really big deal. Actually, 3 years ago, I was in a drive-through of a Burger King, and it took about 8.5 minutes to get my order. And I always wondered what was happening, what was happening inside that was causing that order to really get delayed that long. So funny enough, I actually ended up applying, and I worked at that Burger King for 2 weeks, just so I could understand all the difficulties of what was happening inside. So sometimes it's a combination of a menu plus operational perspective. From a menu perspective, my advice is do not put more than 3 slides to rotate in between your content. Ideally, it's maximum of 2 that rotate every 8 seconds. The second piece of advice is you do not actually have to rotate your entire content. You all know, based on your data, based on your POS data, what are your favorite items. You should know exactly what item gets ordered the most, what item gets ordered the least, depending on the time of the day. So you can actually schedule your content using a CMS system to really push content that shows your top priority items, and then maybe even take sections of your menu to rotate those. We've all been in situations where we have to kind of wait for that entire cycle to go through, and I think that's just overwhelming, and people just don't know where to look. Even if people are regular to your location, it's really kind of hard to manage that. So my advice is take about 70% of your menu, put about your top favorites, your top orders directly there. Take the bottom 30% of your menu and use that for rotations, LTOs, promos, anything that you want to basically rotate through. maybe any new item, anything that you want to circulate through, and make that rotation about 8 seconds, because that's really how long it takes someone to see it. It has worked for billboards for the really longest time. You probably heard billboards do 8 by 8. So usually it's 8 slots for 8 seconds. But for the drive-thru, I would recommend keeping 2 slots for 8 seconds each.
Thank you. So Brittany, I have a question for you. So Cowboy Chicken is not really a drive-through model. Like, you guys have some limited numbers, but it's not your primary design. So for drive-through, they typically say industry ideals are to stay below 4 minutes per customer. So less than half of the Burger King experience that Eli had. How does that apply to a brand like Cowboy Chicken, where it's indoor dining?
It's difficult. To be honest, this conversation that we've been having, and our partnership with our friendship with DSA, and our partnership and friendship with Neon, has caused us to rethink our drive-through menu strategy. I'm using quotations because we didn't really have a whole lot of strategy to begin with. We took the same in-store menu that we have as a fast casual concept of wood-fire rotisserie chicken at the time only, and we put that on our drive-through menu boards. And then we kind of gradually rolled out tenders, which we don't have really a warming system for tenders. They're made fresh to order, breaded fresh to order. So we're seeing, a very large ticket time through the drive-through window. And since we've added items like wings and tenders, we also noticed a decrease in our drive-through sales. And so we're taking a step back now and saying, okay, let's look at how we evaluate each menu item that we actually have on the drive-through and that we want guests to order, and maybe highlighting those. A chicken's super easy. It's fresh. We cut it in half and put it in to-go container, and those kind of even out our ticket times. That we're noticing those tenders are just killing us, because again, they're made fresh to order. But also, how do we go about educating the guest as a fast casual brand that also offers a drive-through window? Should it be order ahead? Should we try pickup window? I don't necessarily think that's the answer, but how do we educate guests? In Texas, Whataburger is very popular, and every time I go or I drive by Whataburger, the line's insane. And I know when I go there, I'm going to wait in line for that fresh, delicious food for 6 minutes at least. But I'm willing to do it, and I somehow, even though there's no signage, I know that, and it's synonymous with that brand. So how do we go about educating our guests that there's going to be a little bit more wait on that ticket time side, but it's worth it, and we're a fast casual concept. And then also, if you order ahead, it's going to be a lot quicker.
What about the indoor portion of it, the inbound, like in-store, in dining? What is the time that's appropriate for that? Or you can't really put a time on that?
We have ticket times. I mean, 3.5, to 4 minutes is, we definitely want to, but we bring the food out to the table, and it's a lot easier. Just like Eli said, he was sitting at that Burger King window and 8 minutes had gone by, and he's like, what's going on? When a guest is in the store and they're ordering, we can spend more time familiarizing them with where we're at, or day part, where our sales are currently at. If they come in and they see that we're busy, they're going to be a little bit more understanding of a higher ticket time. And we can also educate them right then. Those are, breaded and fried fresh to order, so it's going to be a little bit more time. We may bring out a kid's plate for you quicker and then bring those tenders out after. So we have more of an opportunity with the relationship with the guest when they're in the store.
The next question is kind of a follow-up question. So have you noticed that third-party deliveries becoming a bigger portion of your revenue, or no?
Absolutely. We are a concept that's 70% off-prem.
Oh, wow.
And we do quite a bit of catering. We have true partnerships with our third-party DoorDash and Uber partners. We also offer our own in-house delivery. So sometimes it's kind of, we butt heads on who's going to take the order and making sure that we're not promoting a third party over in-house delivery. But we also lean on them as a DSP service for them to deliver orders for us that we necessarily can't take due to timing, or it's hard. It's hard to hire drivers in this market. They want to build their own schedules. So what I really notice more now than ever is third-party delivery drivers wanting to come through our drive-through to pick up their orders versus coming in and showing their phone and picking it up off of a shelf. They think it's quicker. We really don't know which direction we should go with that. Should we embrace it, or should we put signage up saying, hey, come inside. We don't want to add more time to the guests that are coming through the drive-through to order.
And the one thing that we have noticed, so a lot of our clients are double, triple lane drive-throughs, is depending on where you are. So if it's, let's say it's a total suburban or urban areas where there is ample parking, third-party drivers don't mind parking and walking in to grab the order. But if you're living in more of a dense area, like we are based in Los Angeles, it's really difficult for the third-party delivery guys to find parking to go pick it up. And then their timing goes off. So we've noticed in some of the major cities, and I'm not talking urban, because there's no drive-through in the urban environment, but it's like a major metropolitan city that still has suburbs. And a good portion of the revenue is generated through third-party deliveries. Some of our clients are dedicating a drive-through lane to third parties. So they have signage that says, lane A for dedicated customers, lane B, third-party pickup. And we had one client that actually added a third lane, and that was for mobile orders. So even between the customers that want to come in direct, they're not going through a third party, they wanted to distinguish the person that ordered ahead and is part of the loyalty app gets a faster service than possibly the one that's just coming in and ordering at the time of arrival. And then it's also dictating the layout of the kitchen, where so many of them are now dedicating two separate kitchens. One is dedicated to the third party orders, and one is dedicated to live drive-through and people in the dining room to make sure that they get the proper service time. Because otherwise, you could be standing at a counter, and I've seen this where I go there and nobody even says hi to me because the dinger in the back is going with all the mobile orders. And then you just stand there for 10 minutes before somebody says hello to you. So the guest experience really goes down for the ones that want to dine in. Anything either of you want to add to that topic before we move on to anything else?
Yeah, I think just your menu screen doesn't have to only show your menu. Like, I love the example that Brittany mentioned about the need to educate your customers about really what you do. We work with many brands that use a portion of their menu, or if they have a 3-panel, they really use a portion of the menu to tell the story of who they are, especially if it's a growing brand or if it's a new store in a new territory that this is your first store that's opening. There's a great opportunity there where, through a drive-through system, where maybe there's a small video next to the tenders explaining how our tenders being done, or here's what's happening right now to prepare your tenders, or even after the order is placed, a little animation that shows up over the entire screen that shows, we're currently preparing this, or we're doing this. And it could be, again, all pre-recorded video, but I think there's an opportunity to educate your customer about truly what your story is and what differentiates you from a food perspective, that they're justifying that time. Because if they're sitting inside your restaurant, there's clearly a different ambiance and there's a different experience, and they're part of your brand and they're already inside. But if someone's coming with in a minivan with 5 kids in the back screaming and kind of wanting food, even if it's a 3-minute order, it's gonna seem like a very long time. So the ability to kind of educate them why this food is different and why the wait is there, I think is a huge opportunity there.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Show. I would
No.
I would say just one other thing, why the drive-through is so fascinating for me. As a marketer, sometimes I feel like I'm throwing things at the wall, right? And a billboard is a really great example. I love a great billboard, don't get me wrong, but I can't always track the number of visits from that billboard to sales, right? Like what's the specific ROI? If I just looking at top line sales, am I getting super creative and trying to do a promotion on there just to try and get a guest to use it? So the one of the cool things about the drive-through for me is it's an order mode. So you can specifically track your changes and you can track that to the ROI. And so that's why I feel like this investment for us of our time and really our resources as a 18 location fast casual brand, everybody's wearing multiple hats. We're trying to stay relevant right now. The economy's tight. This is something that if we put time into it and we put effort into it, we can track the return of it.
Thank you. That's so critical because every penny, like if you think about it, like you have certain brands that are all corporate owned, and then most brands are majority franchisee owned. And in the world of franchise, a lot of these are family owned units. And the families are putting their heart and soul along with all their savings into it. So every penny matters, which means the ROI is really important. So before you just throw darts at a wall, you got to know that you're going to get something out of it. So thanks for bringing that up. And I think by now the audience knows we are talking about all the different elements that get into it to make the overall store successful. And what we want to really focus on here is that partnership aspect of it. Why the right partners are crucial to you actually succeeding. There's been plenty of research done by major consulting firms like BCG and Accenture that indicate 30 to 60% of revenue as a whole, not just QSR, just this is the economy, is generated through ecosystems. And what we mean by ecosystems is when multiple partners come together to deliver success for a brand. So in this little image, we put a very simple example based on who's on this call. When you think of Cowboy Chicken being the client, their success is essentially the most important piece. And if they are successful, 99.9% of the time, all the partners that are involved in bringing that solution are going to be successful by default, because that success just generates future revenues. So the key piece is having the right people that have alignment on what the ultimate goal is. That ultimate goal is the end client being successful. There's been a research that was done by Harvard Business Review and McKinsey & Company. I think they're the most expensive consulting firm in the nation, that shows that 50 to 80% of these partnerships fail very early on. And the reason they fail is like people get excited about a topic, they get excited about joining forces, but they don't really take the time to understand, like, are you the right partner for me? And this is even at the vendor level. And it's so crucial that your values are aligned before anything else. Because, and I'll give you an example, like, could DSA do content in-house? Probably, if you hired engineers and put in the effort, we could. Could Eli get into building hardware for himself? Absolutely. Like, you rent a manufacturing space, you buy some equipment, and you can do it. Would the results of that be as good as having two experts that are really good at what they do, coming together? They know all the ins and outs of their portion, and they're aligned on the goal that, hey, at the end of the day, we got to do what's best for the client. It will never be the same. So when we met, that was one of the key things that we discussed. as like, what is the key thing for you? How do you define success? And both of us believe that it shouldn't be transactional. You don't care about like making money at every single step. It's about delivering a solution that's so good, nobody wants to switch and go elsewhere. So before I go any further, I kind of want Eli to maybe have a quick maybe input as to what he thought and how he picks his partners. Because in his world, there's also the POS partners and every other technology that goes into it. It's not just putting content on the screen.
Yeah, so I started the company really because I use other signage solutions in the space, and I think the lack of support that I've experienced, or the lack of service and the lack of reliability, really made me kind of develop Neon as an internal solution. And then from there, the things that pissed me off and bothered me, we made as a core component of things that we will never do wrong at Neon. So we always have support right here at Phoenix, by phone, by text. Any of our clients can reach us at any time. And I think it's more of a matter of every client that we have, no matter how fast we're growing, they're clients that, go beyond the contract, go beyond like, do you want to do life together, right? Running a restaurant is already tough enough. Is this a person that I want to like grab dinner with beyond just like the fake schmoozy dinner, but is this someone I'm going to enjoy actually building a relationship with? And I think, my relationship with Brittany had, initially when I reached out to Brittany, she's like, no, we're already using a solution. We're not gonna switch. And I think it was more of like, I'm not gonna sell you something that you don't need. I was more intrigued with her solution, which she'll tell you about. And it's probably one of the most creative ways I've seen menu boards being done. So I'll let Brittany kind of share that. But from the DSA part, the big thing for us was, we are not a hardware company. I do not want to do the hardware. So I know, Sho, you said it's easy to buy hardware. It's not easy. Hardware, the first 4 letters is hard for a reason. So building hardware, installation, all that kind of stuff, that's pretty difficult. So we want to do really good software, and that's really what we specialize with. We specialize with really good software with really good support. So we wanted to lean on someone that can do really good hardware. That includes good manufacturing, good reliability, and someone that I can call, because we all know construction projects always go bad at some point, right? There's always some delay with a shipment or things like that. And the fact that I knew I could call on DSA to support on that front has been huge. I remember our first project, which really why DSA kind of became our partner right now, is we had a project. It was supposed to be for one location test, and but it had the opportunity to kind of grow more. But it was our first project with DSA, and DSA went completely behind the scenes, orchestrated flying installers in and orchestrating delivery overnight and all that, because we had to meet a deadline for the client. And guess what? They didn't tell me about any of this. They didn't bother me with all the details and, hey, by the way, we need you to do this and this. So at that moment, I realized, like, if I buy something from them or if we partner, that they're going to handle their piece, because by the end of the day, my brand also matters. Like, if a client chooses Neon and they choose Neon for the entire solution, they say, hey, we want you to source the screens, the mounts, the enclosures, the canopy. Then we go and, it's one neck to choke or one hand to shake. So if DSA kind of drops the ball, it doesn't matter if DSA dropped the ball, they're going to think Neon dropped the ball. So for me, it was very important to protect my brand by partnering with someone like DSA for the hardware solution. And then from a client perspective, honestly, like, this might sound super simple and stupid, but it's like, just listen to what they want. Like, when I met with Brittany and all our clients, it's like, hey, we might not be the solution for you. So I'm really big on, like, if we're not a good partner for you, then we're not a good partner for you. If you already have an existing solution going on for you. And I think building that relationship and just asking, like, how do you currently do things? Can I help you with this? We have another brand called Super Chicks. Initially, when we worked with them, they did not have a POS integration. And they showed me all the JPEGs and images that they had to manage. I was like, wait, if I can simplify you from having 150 JPEGs down to like 5 JPEGs with an integration with your POS that can pull in the price, would that be easier for you? And they're like, yeah, absolutely. So we ended up spending 6 weeks building that entire integration in our software, going back to them. So I think the part that people forget is, as a software provider, you're supposed to provide solutions. So it's software as a service, and also provide the service. Don't forget about the customer after you sign the contract. Don't only circle back with them when the contract is about to renew. And I think if you do those two things, then your clients will stick with you. You know, for 5 years of us being in business, we've had 0 cancellations, and then your vendors will start trusting you to recommend you to their clients as well. So those are kind of my perspective of why this relationship works.
Awesome. Brittany, I'm sure you have some response to what Eli mentioned as far as your alt solution versus the interaction you had where you thought Neon was the right person.
Yeah, it's so funny. We talk about this old solution like it's a dirty little inside joke. So I'm going to bring everybody into the inside joke. When when I first met DSA and Shokouh and my good friend Meredith Yerkes, there was some talk about kind of our drive-through hardware. But you know, we're a small big brand, right? And we have to be super conscious of where we're putting our efforts in. And at that time, even though now we're reassessing, we were not prepared to have a conversation about drive-through. And thanks for being so understanding, Shokouh. And I don't know if Meredith's on this call. Adore her. She's fantastic. Yes. You want to talk about partners, like, but I had created a solution in stores that this is how good Neon is, guys. The solution I had in stores for digital menu boards was free. And it didn't always work correctly. But I would say 90% of the time I could work it. I could mostly control it, which, as you know, whatever we can automate and whatever we can control, you know, for our staff it's a goal, right? And so when Neon came to me, and not that it's expensive, but it's more expensive than free, I was like, this isn't going to work. And then as the solution I put into place grew, I remembered that you weren't sleazy, you know, Eli. The people on this call, I know you're gonna, you know, probably relate to me, and I'm sorry I'm so honest sometimes, but we can see through the BS. We can, when it's a salesperson reaching out to me and they're trying to sell something, like I cringe on those calls, you know, and I didn't get that feeling. And then whenever I was in a store and I was like, look, I called you up and I said, this isn't working for me anymore. It's kind of gotten out of hand. You know, we're a small, big company, but we're too big for this solution. I don't know if you mind me telling, Eli, but I'm going to. We hadn't signed a contract with you. We hadn't paid $1. You were like, hey, just turn on your TV and go to this app and download it and send me your boards. And I'm not even going to charge you. Like, just let me fix this for you. Like, you had no interest in anything except for making my life easier. And to top it off, the shared goals, but also everything that we're doing today as a corporate team with all the different hats that we're wearing. When a vendor approaches me with a new platform, if it's too self-serve, if it's too much data and not enough insights, or not enough, hey, I just need you to be my boots on the ground to help, you know, implement this, and then we've got you moving forward. And if you have any questions, we have 24-hour customer service, which is still insane to me. Then I almost don't have time to even think about managing another platform. That's the place that I get to. And so the answer for me was, you made my life easier. You took a very big friction point for me that was taking up a lot of time every LTO. You didn't cost me an arm and a leg, and I implemented it in a store in 15 minutes. And so I haven't had to touch it since. That to me is a win. That's a partnership win.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think you nailed it, and good job, Eli. Not that I'm surprised the slightest, but it's really important to also see if your partners are not just, they can help you with that one thing, that content, but what kind of relationships do they have? So if you have another need, or if what they're creating touches something else within your, you know, stack of technology, can they actually support you? Like, if, you know, there's a gazillion POSs out there, and I swear every trade show I go to, there's a new one coming out. But is this somebody who can generate content regardless of if I'm using Toast or if I have Square or if I'm on something old like an Aloha, can they actually still support me? If the last thing you want is somebody rolling up and your drive-through menu board says, I'm going to throw a number out there and I'm going to look really silly, but let's say a half chicken is $12.99, and then they go to pay and their credit card gets charged $14.99 because the POS data didn't match the content that was up there. Regardless of which way it goes, if you overcharge or undercharge, you lose credibility. So having somebody who can see everything else that goes into play, it's really important. And if you do get to a point, and I know in this case, like you have the relationship with us, but let's say you didn't know DSA from Adam. If you get to a point that you're like, hey, our strategy is changing, we now need to actually go get a drive-through. Do you know anybody? Having a partner like Neon who has tried and tested multiple vendors out there to come to you and say, you know what, I know DSA or I know so-and-so for whatever service, and I actually trust them. The fact that you trust Neon will give you confidence in whoever they're recommending. And that's another way they make your life easier by removing the months or weeks of research you have to do and 20 people you have to call to find another vendor for something new you're adding to your platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And it almost feels like a hookup. You're like, hey, I know somebody that's going to take care of you. I'd be like, Eli, who should I call over there? And he's going to be like, I know the owner. I'll make sure she takes care of you. I'm like, I'm going to get the best deal on this. When in actuality, the best deal is just somebody who's listening to me.
Yeah, I think we went from just kind of doing business together initially, but I think before we even did business together, we were just like, understanding what Brittany needs in terms of the day-to-day, understanding kind of some of the complexities that she was having. And it's about like everyone in the restaurant space is already running under like 30 fires every day. And especially if it's a growing brand, you even have more and more things to do. So I think just sometimes understanding that just lead by giving before you ask has always been like one of our core things. And I've trained my team on that. It's just so I remember Brittany, she's like, send me the contract. I'm like, just don't worry about the contract, just use it. And then if you like it over the next 2 weeks, then message me and we'll figure out all the contract stuff. So I think we did like a couple stores without even the contract, but I think it's just more of like, just give before you start asking for stuff. And it just creates that trust that you're not trying to to take advantage of someone, just because we've all been in those situations where you signed, a 3-year contract on a software deal that always goes south 6 months later because their support is not there, or the salesperson promised you something that wasn't real. So, we want people to use us because they like us, not use us because they're stuck in a contract. And that's why we continue to win in this category. 93% of our customers have switched from other providers over to us because we just kind of lead by giving. And I think that's the kind of relationship that you want to build. And so many of our clients now have come from referrals from other clients. So, I think that's the best testament. I can spend millions of dollars on billboards, as Brittany said, but, if Brittany tells one other brand about us, that's worth, so much more. And she just, we just have to give her a good experience. And I think that matters the most.
Yeah. And it also being referred to somebody that is a strategic partner makes me feel like I'm not a guinea pig. Like we want to be at the forefront of innovation as a brand, but we're not in a position yet to where we can spend money on something that's too innovative that we don't know if it works or not. Best believe whenever we look at working with a platform, we're going to do case studies. One of the first questions that we ask is, who else are you working with? How do we set up a call?
Awesome. Eli, I have one more question for you. So when you think about your content, your software, even your customer experience software, your music in the store, when you think of some of the most difficult things your clients have had to deal with because whether it was an error on their part or there was just a hard lesson they had to learn? What is the most common mistake you see in that space?
Are you thinking from like a mistake like a client did in terms of a partner
Yeah.
that they chose?
And then,
Yeah.
and a mistake that like a good software provider could actually take care of.
Yeah.
And so they don't have to go through it again.
Yeah, I mean, we recently started working with another chicken brand, and then they came to us because they had a tremendous frustration with having to deal with about 5 different vendors just to get the drive-through up and running. And then with us, although we're a software solution, we do offer our services as a full service solution because we've already vetted DSA, we've already vetted the headset system, we've already vetted the directional signage, we've already kind of done all these different components, the installers, all that kind of stuff. And we have like the partners that always show up on time, that always deliver. So now with us, they get just to work with us, and there's one phone call that they get to call. So I think one of the biggest frustration that, especially for a new location, that happens is the amount of vendors that you have to juggle. And not just from a corporate perspective, but also from a franchisee perspective. So, a franchisee signs up with a brand because they want this turnkey solution. They want to just be able to be a restaurateur, to run the restaurant. And I think when they go through the construction process and realize, the GCs that they have to work with, the different vendors that they have to work with, and then the variety of different software solutions that they have to sign up with, is kind of shocking. One of our biggest pain points that we try to address with our solution is we started as a digital signage solution, and people came to us and said, we really hate our music provider too. Can you also help us with that? So we ended up building a music solution based on that need. And then we ended up building a Wi-Fi solution and built a kiosk solution. So now we took 4 different dashboards. So think about it from a Brittany's perspective. If she has to do something, she doesn't have to log on 4 different dashboards to update something. Now she can just go to one central place, but not just from a Brittany perspective from an HQ, but think about her managers. So the managers are already running with a to-do list that is as long as the day of things that they have to do. Maybe 2 people didn't call in today. Maybe, that shipping of French fries didn't show up. A table broke in the lobby or in the hall or anything like that. So they already have a million things. And now you're asking them to work with 4 different vendors for support to handle one thing. So I think the simplification of operating a restaurant should be a big focus moving forward. I think tech is cool, but whenever you have too many tech solutions, then it becomes more complicated to manage all those.
Awesome. I know we spend quite a bit on this topic, but I think it's important, and the whole point is to actually help folks. So now thinking about it, as a brand, you're trying to adapt and pick your partners. What are some of the key things that we've kind of been discussing? The whole one size doesn't fit all. Eli mentioned being able to listen to the client and see what their needs are. Nobody wants me, I'm just talking about DSA. I can go out there and be like, well, for 20 years, we've been doing A, B, and C for Starbucks. But guess what? The client I'm talking to is not Starbucks. They don't have Starbucks's revenue. They don't have the capabilities that the corporate has. They're not corporate owned. So it doesn't really apply. So rather than approaching it from let me tell you what should work for you, pause and really truly understand what is it the client needs. What are their pain points? What is it that keeps them up at night? And try to come up with a solution that actually works for them rather than here is my catalog. I hate the word catalog, just a pet peeve. Because when you say catalog, it means you've already decided what's good for everybody. And you put it on a page and you're like, here's all my offerings, pick one. Rather than going to them and say, okay, what works for you? What do you need? And even when you do that and you design something unique or some standard offering you have, you offer them, for the same exact brand, it's not always the same thing. The number of times we hear the word, well, my zoning restrictions in this specific zip code don't allow us to have a canopy, or don't allow me to have 2 posts, or don't allow my signage. Like you're in Arizona, Eli. The city of Chandler, Arizona, for whatever reason, they have a zoning restriction that no menu board can be higher than 72 inches high from ground up. Who came up with that? I have no idea. But being able to listen to that concern rather than telling, and I've heard companies telling them, well, dig the ground deeper, that would lower it, and then pour dirt on it, it will come up and it would be lower. Instead of saying, not a problem at all, I think we can adjust our screen. Or have you thought about going from a 55-inch to a 46-inch? That reduces the height by a couple inches. We'll get you to that 72. Tell me what you need so you don't have to fight with the city. Realizing the brands have to deal with permitting. Take away the permitting pain if you can. Work with installers that are local, that have that relationship with the city, and they can get their permits approved in 2 weeks versus 3 months. Be flexible when the city is behind and they can't do it, so their store opening is delayed. Delay your production. Say, okay, not a problem at all. We'll install it whenever you're ready, whenever you have your permit. Understand that certain jurisdictions are a lot more strict when it comes to UL certifications. Don't just send something out there that's not UL certified and tell them, oh, well, that's your specific zip code. Now you need to go get an inspector and pay him $5,000 to come and inspect our product. No, it's on you. Get your product to be fit for every market. Make sure, your simple things like your canopy doesn't fall when there's a tornado in Texas, or if there is a hurricane in southern Florida. Like, be mindful of everything that could happen and the pain that the operator may have to feel. Work behind the scenes with your content partner, align the install time. From the time, your concrete has to be poured and cured for like days before they can actually install a sign. Make sure you communicate those things like clearly, even to your partner like Neon, that's basically relying on your product to be installed at their clients. So I don't talk to Super Chicks directly, right? But if we don't communicate that properly to Eli, and he promises a date to Super Chicks that's not efficient, then they have to delay their store opening possibly by like 8 days because the concrete hasn't cured yet and they can't actually bolt on anything to it. Little things, but just being able to think about what's going through the client's plate versus your own, and educating them ahead of time and giving them the timelines and doing all the work with your partner on the side so they end up delivering what they said they're going to deliver. I'm going to pause here. I'm going to ask both Brittany and Eli to add anything that I may have missed that they think should be a takeaway for the audience. And then we're going to do one quick poll and then go to Q&A right after that.
You go first, Eli.
Yeah, I think my piece of advice for all the brands, I'm assuming there's a lot of brands on this call. My piece of advice on this is don't sign a contract unless you know that this is the right partner for you. I think, test and test again, right? And don't just like test in a lab environment, right? If your software partner is not willing and is not confident to launch their software solution in one of your stores, that's not the right software partner for you, because that thing will fall apart in the first week and you start getting the phone calls. Ask and test their support system. So a lot of people say they offer support, but go ahead and create a alias account, Joe Schmo, and go ahead and email them, right? And see how fast it takes to respond to you, or how fast their phone support lasts. And then number 3 is try it, but not from you as just as a tech person. So if you're a head of marketing or head of IT and you're picking a solution, it might make sense to you that you need to plug something into the HDMI, but it might not make sense to a franchisee who might not be tech savvy, or to a 17-year-old that might be working your store and scooping that scoop of ice cream. So I would say pick a franchisee that you trust, that you can depend on, and launch it with them. We recently partnered with a brand, and they were doing the testing in the lab, and everything was going great. Then they introduced us to a franchisee, and we did one location. And all of a sudden, the franchisee called me. He's like, "Hey, here's the address for 8 more locations." And then the HQ did not even know that this was happening until like 2 weeks later. And I already launched it. We didn't have a contract. It's like with Brittany's situation. I was like, "Yeah, just use it." And then I got a message from HQ. They're like, "Oh, looks like this is already rolling out. Like you guys are already in." And they're like, and so we got this like raving review from the franchisee. He's a master franchisee, saying like how easy it was to deploy. So I think, don't just test it in your HQ environment. Give it to your end audience and let them kind of use it, and before you really feel confident that this is the right partner for you.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, Eli. I would just tack on 2 different things. One, we talked about partnerships, strategic partnerships. I mean, not just your vendors, but other concepts that you've built partnerships with. Like, utilize your community to help vet these tech platforms. And then next, I would say that location strategy is super important. Sometimes a solution is going to be mostly correct for your brand. It's not always a one size fits all. But if you are testing, like Eli suggested, then make sure that you have a way for your store and for guests to provide feedback, so they have a seat at the table essentially whenever you're testing these different types of platforms. That way, you're not you're not all just sitting at a table or behind a computer screen making decisions for the brand, based off of those very 2 important voices that should count. That's it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Sho. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll do the poll very quickly. We know that change is difficult. I think we talked through this quite a bit. But as you think through it, what would you consider? Like, what would make you want to consider switching providers? Because you have those relationships. So just go ahead and tell us what makes you. Eli kind of covered some of the ways people have switched to him and the reasoning, but we would love to hear it from you guys. And we'll just give it about maybe 30 seconds.
I wonder if there's going to be a clear front runner on this poll.
Oh. Let's see, poor support. I think, Eli, you beat that first horse. The poor support. All right. I want to make sure we have time to answer a couple of questions. So, oh, wow. 63% said poor support. Second winner is lack of flexibility. The last one, frequent tech issues and equipment failure. Good. So thank you so much, everybody who attended. We appreciate you. And I think we have time to answer maybe 1, possibly 2 quick questions. Sam?
Yeah, all right. Thank you for a great conversation, guys. Sho, you're exactly right. I think we've got time for at least 1, maybe 2 here. So I'll just jump right in. One of our audience members, they want to know, when franchisors are looking at refreshing their digital screens at the drive-thru, with the heavy capital costs involved, are companies considering offsetting some of this cost by looking outside their core revenue streams? It's the first one we got.
I know that some of the bigger corporations that sign like major contracts with beverage companies, for example, Coke or Pepsi, they typically sign a 10-year contract. And a lot of times, as part of that contract, they get them to agree to covering a cost of signage, or at least a portion of it. But when I talk about that, I'm talking brands that have north of 500 locations. Eli, Brittany, I don't know for the smaller brands if you've heard of anything else. I mean, there's always the financing option, but what else have you guys heard?
Yeah, I think it's a.
Go ahead, Eli.
No, go ahead. It's all yours.
I was just going to say the only other, available revenue stream for marketing, which is what I would consider this, is I've seen if you want to go exclusive with maybe like a third party like DoorDash or Uber, I've seen them for some brands offset costs like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've seen experiences where we have a partnership with Coca-Cola, and they've done signage credits. Also for smaller brands, we work with a brand called Angry Chicks, and there was, we had a collaboration with Coke there. We work with University of Georgia, and Village Burger, and a couple of those brands, and Coke was a partner for us there to provide signage credit in exchange for using a portion of your menu to promote fountain drinks and fountain drink upsells from that perspective. So there's an opportunity there, and going back to partnerships, is if you work with a partner that has those relationships where they can loop in the right contacts at Coke to provide those credits, I think that would be a big deal.
All right, great, guys. I know I'd love to dive into some more of these audience questions here, but we are just over an hour. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up here. On behalf of QSR Magazine, I would like to extend our many thanks to DSA Signage for making this webinar possible. Also to everyone in the audience for attending, and of course to Show, Brittany, and Eli for taking us through it all. Before we sign off, I also want to encourage everyone to fill out our survey questions. Tell us about your experience today. And as one final reminder, a recording of this program will be linked on qsrmagazine.com. You can also use today's login link to view it at any time. Thanks again, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.